absence of sentimental politics, which promises empathetic identification, will suddenly reshape the world and actualize an ethics of care. They have imagined that their presentation of violence is a prophylactic against the resurgence of violence, all the while ignoring the liberal moralism that is the motor of modern warfare. The act calls for victims to bargain for a more just world by exposing their wounds for academic consumption. This act of politicization relies on a racist victim economies in which black, brown, and red bodies are empirically drained of life, all while academics extract renaissance and advancement from their own objectified identities. Berlin in 98 in the traditional political modalities, the sentimental promise in that in a just world, the consensus already exists about what constitutes unpoliticized identification with something we have for response to sentimental plot to the repetition of the audience that does to generally help you avoid transformation will be around for the good luck. The desire for conflict is by motivated sacrifice and surprising ideas. The production of tears when anger or nothing may become more urgent with the coming cultural dominance of traumas models for remembering collective experience. The authenticity of overwhelming pain that can be contextually performed and shared and disseminated as a prophylactic against the reproduction of shocking and numbing mass violence. The overvaluation of such redemptive feeling is a condition of that violence. They cut the complexity of human motives down to size by referring a lie more palatable than the truth about the material effects of the literal pedagogy of optimism. Insistence on the subject's bargain for the redemption of their own mortification violently confirms the fundamental objection of all persons. This national liberal refusal of complexity is the price of the ticket for membership in the American dream that political sentiment uses suffering vampirically, making the injunction to empathy states this addiction persists with a terrible power, confirms the U.S. minorities are constituted as others, even as themselves shaped subcultures of Americans really are, fully expressed by stereotypical images. The ass presumption of suffering creates a marketplace of trauma, transforming wounds into a commodity for Western consumption. And politics of mourning exists by turning the other to a dead object through which we can construct a sentimental economy of pleasure and pacification. The act is a form of empathetic identification, is a process of death-making which ensures the smooth functioning of imperialism. This fantasy of change through investment in the law shields criticism and guides violence. Berlin in Berlin to 99. Ravaged bodies saturate the global marketplace, signifying a race that will be won by nations whose conditions are more optimal. The media register new scandals at home and abroad, which might be a good thing, yet even if that image the traumatized proliferates, it competes with the normative utopian image of the U.S. citizens that remain on market exploitation. Only fears that the scandalous nugget in the sea of memory. Mourning is a beautiful experience of emancipation that takes over the place over distance, even if the object is neither dead nor at any great distance mounting against an act of aggressive social death, making these sorrow signs of the scandal scene. The exploitation elsewhere are aggressively songs of mourning play the backwards and military march of capitalist triumphalism can be heard. Survival can only be achieved by a citizenry that uses most creative energy to cultivate an intimate sphere. The pressure of feeling of shock through being uncomfortably political produces a cry for double therapy. The victim and the viewer. This national sentimentality promotes and maintains the hegemony of national identity form. The sentimentality is longer the means by which the mess subaltern pain is advanced as a true core of national collectivity. Theoretically, identification with pain leads to social change. Yet these very sources of production have buttressed traditional matrices of cultural hierarchy. The magic capacity of these institutions to assimilate the effective tactics of subaltern counter policies as weaknesses. The sharp sensitivity to the traumatic model of pain mischaracterizes what a person is as what a person becomes in social negation. Counter-hegemonic deployments of pain actually sustain the utopian image of a homogeneous national metaculture, which can look like a healed body. Attacking the use of trauma over-identifies the eradication of pain with the achievement of justice. Sentimentalist politics make these confusion credible, and the values variable as the cultural power confirms the centrality of intrapersonal identification and empathy to the valid of collective life. This gives citizens something to do in response to overwhelming structural violence. Meanwhile, these linkages are too frequently served as ethically uncontestable, legitimating devices for sustaining the hegemonic field. The ass assumes the role of the ascetic priest who suffers in their role as a symbol for the rest in their attempt to master and banish suffering. Resentment is turned inward as feelings of guilt flourish. The drive to resolve the suffering of the world is rooted in the will to self-protection. Liberalism's management of suffering is life-denying will to nothingness, which attempts to sterilize existence and free the movement and becoming which is constitutive of life's meaning. Above 10. We are told the ascetic priest, the savior and shepherd of the suffering, has been signaled to reach suffers because it is adopting the world, the savior of all sufferers. The historical mission set down of his mastery, suffering at all times, only as being able to steadily end his pain, but he turns his resentment against himself. But this is accompanied by the notion of guilt and sin, which moderation, which contradicts his labor and exchange of some illusions for the others. When the suffering ceases to be intoxicated by fantasies, and when the suffering makes him apprehend the world in a not too flattering reality, he brings himself with him and bond. No doubt, before he can access the physician, he first has to wound, and he stills the pain, and he infects the wound. His ascetic priest has constantly combated the disintegration of the flock. The direction of resentment is rooted not in selfless love, but in an artful strategic act of self-preservation without seeing it. There's no way to regard resentment as a moral sickness without seeing it as a political pathology of Western politics. We must remember that the confessional is not a place to expel discord. This is not where we will be safe. A real look at the political economy of liberalism embodied in the accompanying ubiquitous ascetic theory will give us some clues that liberalism reifies modes of suffering and action via ritual personifications, objectifications, and subjectifications that suffuse our sensuous existence. The ascetic self-preserving self-abnegation, forcing the rest of us to rise up to the occasion to save it every time it proclaims a threat to itself, forgetting very quickly that is very resident. Was that it would save us from each other. It is his evaluation of existence as the priest of man. Obedience for someone to be put right. The very notion of putting right by Jesus, assuming compliance with the life and the rightness would be it is this ideal life which gives him presence to the ascetic labor that is one that affirms life. But the fact that he chose his value to life as opposed to the whole sphere of becoming his wife, the ascetic labor is rooted in the denial of life. The ascetic ideal is the protective instinct of degenerating life which tries to sustain itself and fight for its existence. The true substance of willing without ascetic labor is characterized for their hatred for the human. The material fear of happiness. All of this is means to will to nothing. That since his entire faith relies on the ideal of merely existing, he does live fairly precarious. Any wonder that liberalism keeps from serving and renewing itself. We must refuse the politics of liberalism, the economization of injury and suffering. Nothing short of an outright rejection of the entirety of this mode of ethics, aesthetics, and politics will be sufficient. Our politics does not ignore the violence of the world. It does not ignore the particular violence suffered by bodies in this world. It refuses a particular set of representations of values which inframe said suffering against the movement of becoming of what the alternative does not wish away suffering, nor does it ignore it, nor does it resolve all of the violence of modernity, but it opens us up to experience the world not as vampires, but as creatures of sensuous life about to death. The aestheticization of the discourse of suffering and the submission of violence to violence is a parallel to the death of the political, so long as the aesthetic this logic will be limited in its vision. The resulting essential once-again experiential proximity to suffering may allow us to radically reimagine our subjection to injuries, interests, and rights. The hysterical materialism of suffering require reconsider woundedness and victimhood to illuminate the multiplicity of relations that are had to our own and other suffering. The judgments, actions, and reactions of many among us cannot help but reject consolations that come from codified knowledge pertaining to what suffering is, how we might despise it, how we must fix it. Only one has the question to imperative these question the imperatives these knowledges pose for all of us, and examine the utilitarian charm of such a beguiling tragedy of powerless institutions and the other conscriptions of sympathy, empathy, and voice and desire for a markedly different world, not giving fervent recruiters of various marginalities the power to set the terms of honoring the suffering, and not giving them the power to corner our pathos by emphasizing how another suffering is impenetrable and unknowable. This is preservation first and foremost of oneself is imperative to reject both the righteousness and the touch-me-not versus all other-centered politics in favor of seeing sufferings as co-constitutive. What would it mean to convoke a politics that was good with that, but it asks for more life? Perhaps liberal politics must accept that statistics are not a graceful confession of its mastery of suffering. It is not that there are no sufferings to be named. It is more important to remember that this is not a random, altruistic, or unmediated process, and it benefits those with agency and position to act on another suffering. Perhaps politics should be able to speak to the reserve army of those with abject yes to be interpreted and recompense sufferings. Perhaps the liberalism's colonization of suffering and the moral dominion over it needs to be resisted, and losing questioning the forms in which we suffer are told to do so is not the same as altogether questioning the reality or centrality of suffering and our responsibility to it. This is not an offering toward politics that is not modeled on the liberal, capitalist, and colonizing ideas of healthy agents who are asked to live diametrical across the poles from victimhood. Such an approach would factor into material experiences, destruction, tragedy, violence, defeat, wounds, memory, hope, and survival that risk obliteration even by the most well-meaning victim-centered politics. It holds on to the ability to suffer as something to be grasped and salvaged from every arbitrary dissipation of modern schemes for solving the problem of human suffering succumb to their own hubris, even as they set the terms for joy and sorrow, love and death. It's the time we confront the nauseating exploitation and self-affirming decrepitude of Western liberal capitalist arbitrations of what suffering must live and where it must die. If this is indeed the case, the world is so colonized that we have not stopped regurgitating it, then the incipient fascism of the metropole today ought to make us wonder whether our problem is not that there's not enough liberalism, but that liberalism is insufficient, is incomplete, is complicit. That at stake is imagining nothing less than the possibility of newer forms of desire, joy, hope, light, and life itself. Do you want me to read that? Am I fair? Injunctions to ethical love only lead to the return of repressed social violence, and the concept of love cannot be expanded without disavowing that violence causing morbid riot. 197 neighbor love assumes both the neighbor and I act in accord to some principle of the good. Objection to the injunction fighter sentence on the aggressivity that arises between the economic dealings with the neighbor, cruelty that obviates any rational county relative, losses and gains that humans are not gentle creatures that want to love the Yamas that have reckon a powerful share of aggressiveness. The neighbor is someone who attempts to satisfy their aggressiveness on him or her. The cruelty that arises face to face with the neighbor in the excess of any utilitarian computation manifests a pure expenditure without consideration for anyone's advantage. The relentless pressure of the death drive is immersed with most severe, uncivilized, and transigent aspect of the relation between neighbors. The social relationship is such the aggressivity is so extreme because of the very essence of our enjoyment. The collusion between anti-Semitism and neighbor love becomes explicitly shortly thereafter to narcissism and minor differences. Christianity has come to disavow aggressivity returns in the shape of anti-Semitism, the believement of Christian neighborliness.
Whatever is your negative case, what is your alternative?
Our alternative is to reject the sort of economy of suffering that constitutes liberalism.
Reject the economy of suffering.
Yeah.
Sure. That constitutes liberalism, right? Yes. Okay, exactly what is that? The economy of
suffering?
Suffering, yes.
What is it?
Yes.
The circulation of the presentation of suffering as an authorizing force, as something to be endorsed because it allows us to sort of empathize or sentimentalize a particular form of suffering, is what sustains liberalism.
Okay, how? What is liberalism?
Sure. Well, liberalism is, a particular legal, political, social construct that, we think is pretty bad.
Okay.
One of the ways in which it's sustained is by the myth of a sort of national healing, the idea that the presentation of suffering and the endorsement of it.
Okay, so when are we trying to get this myth of national healing? Where do we talk about national healing?
It's not so much what you talk about, but how...
because it's a negative.
It's how it's circulated throughout the space.
It is, we agree. There's a point in the winning C where it indicates
you
that...
Here and you say that acid, sentimental politics.
Yeah.
You're gonna tell me that it's
No,
not about
I agree. It's in the up. The affirmative has multiple points where it indicates that this is a struggle for recognition by sort of larger national structures or cultural structures.
Wait, okay.
Our
What
point is that
structure
that
are we
struggle
talking
for
about?
recognition is
What
bad.
structure?
Well,
Well, the point is that there is no real structure.
So wait, let me get this
No
clear.
real structure.
Well, wait, hold on. Let me get this clear.
Yeah.
When I specifically told you that my Harris Perry was not about recognition in the sense that you're talking about,
Right.
you feel what?
Because you
I don't
said
understand.
it's not about recognition in the sense of policymaking. We agree. It's about recognition in the sense of, I don't know, something, some big other that we
Something
would
you don't know what it is,
suggest.
but you
Yes.
don't read his card.
I don't think anyone knows what it is. It's
You wouldn't know because you didn't read the damn card.
I read the card, I don't know.
Okay. Okay, can you explain exactly how we link to this and how do we link to your ethical love? Because we read cards about what's saying that love
Well,
is
the
all
idea,
about
for
sentimental
example,
feelings
of
and trauma
emotional
connections.
consciousness is one that we would criticize as.
Okay, what is emotional consciousness?
We would say your call for emotional consciousness.
Do you even
the
know what it
idea,
is?
What is emotional consciousness?
Exactly, because I'm saying it's like
What
you're going to
is
sit up here and
emotional
tell me it's
consciousness?
sentimental feelings and all that BS, and we didn't even say that in our 1A.
I think you did.
No, we didn't.
Okay, well,
Buddy.
you obviously didn't use the word sentimental. Are you?
Unless I did.
Okay, quick question.
What?
Okay, quick question.
Did
So,
you or didn't you?
what
I did.
does the
I'm confused.
alternative look like in this
Exactly, you are
round?
confused.
In
Like
this
the
round,
economy of
vote
suffering.
nay.
But duh! I clearly know that part. I'm talking about how does it function within this round?
Well,
It
that's the
functions
important
to
part.
interrupt the circulation of this.
I think the central question that the alternative interjects in is how should Joe relate to the presentation of the 1AC?
But what if it's not about him?
I have a question too.
It is because he makes
Hold
it
on.
valid.
Hold on,
How is our love of self?
Oh, yeah,
Sorry,
that's
how is
not-
our love of self and
Michael,
self-affirmation?
yeah.
Hush. How is our love of self and self-affirmation a love of this freaking neighbor that you're talking about in your last card?
The love to the self is not the love of the neighbor.
Exactly. So it doesn't link. Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.